we are switching over our formats. For those of you who listen on a regular basis know we have multiple formats on Saturday mornings from 6 to 7. We put on the gospel music, which is the good news in song. And then we go into our interview author format, and then we go back to the music in the last hour or whatever is remaining in those minutes. So we're getting ready to switch over. My guest indeed has called in right on time. I always ask my guests to call in a few minutes before the show so we have a chance to chat for a couple of seconds before we go live on the air. So I tell you what, it's the 7 o'clock hour. I'm going to give you the weather. I'm going to share the weather with you and let you know what's going on weather-wise, and then I'll get my guest introduced, and we will be underway for another episode of The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. So I tell you right now, we are at 31 degrees, working our way up to a high of 40 degrees, and then we're going to drop back to a low of 25. Expected to be partly cloudy today. Then tomorrow, Sunday, 44 degrees as a high, 37 degrees as a low, mostly cloudy. On Monday, we can expect some rain, 46 degrees as a high, 35 degrees as a low. Tuesday, 51 degrees as a high, 36 degrees as a low, partly cloudy. And then rounding out our forecast on Wednesday, 51 degrees as a high, 35 degrees as a low, partly cloudy. So we're going to be in those 40s and 50s as a high, and then back down to about 35 or so as a low. That is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. My guest this morning, she is an international speaker, author, educator, and consultant at R.E.A.L. It spells out Real Health LLC. She comes by way of Batavia, New York, and again by way of Atlanta, Georgia. She graduated Tucker High School back in 1970, and then the University of Georgia, where she was magna cum laude. She's a member of Alpha Chi or Chi Omega sorority, Beta Sigma chapter, and she taught middle school for over 15 years between Georgia, Connecticut, West Virginia, and North Carolina. She's put in a 2-mile-long nature trail in Danbury, Connecticut, and wrote a book of environmental activities for teachers and students to utilize while on the trail. And she was presented The Key to the City by the mayor of Danbury, Connecticut. I remember they used to have a big fair up in Danbury. Healing Wounds, Life Lessons to Inspire, published by Tate Publishing, was nationally released on February 23rd, 2011. And she has an opportunity to speak to many groups on topics ranging from awareness of self, parenting, healing relationships. Also, she speaks about epilepsy and multiple sclerosis. Those are situations that she's had to deal with in order to learn what she needed to learn. Her second book, T.R.U.T.H, and I'm having some fun with the periods because they're acronyms that spell out words. It's Taking Responsibility Unleashes True Healing. That came out last year, 2018, and has been well received. It is a compilation of 366 truths to guide you through your year or life journey. And we're going to talk a little bit about where that's available a little bit later in the show. She's also been featured on as an inspirational luminary on the Inspire Me Today website, and she's written articles for the Whole Woman Post online paper and fun and fit website. She was one of the 30 women selected nationwide to be featured in Carolyn Shearer's book, Women Will Save the World. She posts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and Pinterest. She has daily Monday through Fridays truths for her readers that she posts, and it is none other than Mary Ellen Ciganovich. Mary Ellen, good morning to the Reading Circle with Marc Medley.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me early this morning. Now, I know I said you came by way of New York and Atlanta. Is Georgia still your home, or are you somewhere else?
No, well, we live in Chattanooga, Tennessee right now.
Okay, so
most of my years I was growing up, I lived in Atlanta.
Okay, so you're calling out of Tennessee now?
Yes, sir.
Now, you are in, let's see, is that Central Time or is that Eastern Time?
Eastern.
Oh, it's still, so you're on the same time frame I am. Okay, the same time zone, rather. Because a lot of times my guests are calling in different time zones, and the show is live on Saturday morning, so they could be either ahead of me or behind me, or in your case, the same as I am, the same zone. So it's about 7 o'clock your time there, too, then.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's good. All right, Mary Ellen, we're going to take this all the way back to the beginning, kind of like, where did things begin? I just read your bio in terms of, it looks like you're a teacher or was a teacher.
Yeah, I taught, like you said, I taught middle school, and most of the times I taught middle school in the inner city, which just seems to be where my talents lie. And I taught 7th and 8th grade. I loved it because they were crazy and I was crazier, so we got along really well.
Well, you know, the funny thing about it, as teachers, we really are, and because I'm a teacher and now I'm a school principal, and I share with folks all the time that part of teaching is part being an entertainer. You really are kind of part being actor and actress whenever you're teaching, because you really are kind of, in a odd kind of way, even though we're teaching, we're still kind of putting on a performance as well. We got to be on every day when we step in that school or in that classroom.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And you've got to be like 10 steps ahead of them.
That's correct. So in terms of like subject matter area, was there any particular subject matter, or was it you taught everything?
Yeah, they moved me around. Most of the time I taught world history or Georgia history or whatever state I was in. I did teach English for a couple of years, which was a very interesting experience.
That's why I asked, because whenever I was teaching, I was an 8th grade language arts teacher. That's what I taught. So, yes.
Yeah, you kind of worry when you walk into a classroom and say, okay, give me a noun, and everybody looks at you. And I'm like, this is going to be a really long year.
But you're absolutely right. But you know what part of the reason that is? There's a couple of variables there, but one of them is, I know in our district for a while we took the basics. Well, I don't want to say we took them out. What the mandate was, you could not teach them alone. It had to be integrated. So in other words, you couldn't teach grammar as a standalone. You couldn't teach nouns, verbs as a standalone. You had to integrate it within other parts of language arts. And that kind of threw me off as a teacher. It's like, but if you don't know your foundation or your basics, how do you get to the other parts that you're trying to integrate it in?
Oh, yeah. Like when they took away diagramming of sentences. And I'm
right.
Like, yeah, that's a way a student can see, because a lot of students are visual learners, as you know, and they can see the sentence being broken down. And then you couldn't teach it that way. And they're tying your hands.
That's absolutely right. And see, my first year, because my first 15 years of my real work life, if you will, was in corporate America. And then I changed from corporate to go do education, which was really my first love to begin with. And the supervisor, whenever I had entered the classroom, she came in to observe me and talk to me. And she said, if I come in back here and I happen to observe you and I see you using a grammar book, I'm going to write you up. And so I was looking at her like, what are you talking about? This is this is an English class. Yeah. So I went to the principal and had an absolute fit. Like, what is she talking about? She's going to write me if I use a grammar book. But that's where this whole notion of you're sharing with me that we had to integrate it with the other parts of ELA. And again, it still doesn't make sense to me because, as you just said, there are people who are visual, so you need that diagramming of sentences or help folks understand the definition of a noun. And then this is the crazy thing, Mary Ellen. The powers that be, whenever the children don't know it, will look at you as if to say, how come they don't know it?
I know. Don't you love that? And, I told my students, too, I said, okay, when you hand in a composition, the final draft, it has to be in blue or black ink or typed, okay? And I said, if you don't have a pen, I will give you a pen, whatever. The school board told me that if they could only write in pencil, I had to accept it in pencil.
The only thing, and I laugh because apparently that was in other states. You were in other states other than the state I'm in, which is New Jersey. And what just came to me was, wow, it's the same way all over. Yeah. It's not just a New Jersey thing or whatever. It's kind of like some of this idiocy is all over the place. I mean, it's kind of like, it's almost like, I don't know, because I know some of the folks that are in these seats, they were in a school or in the classroom, but then there are many legislators and lawmakers who weren't. So some of these things that are put into place by people that have absolutely no experience in the classroom whatsoever.
Right. Like I taught at a time when they were doing cooperative learning. I don't know if you remember
Oh, I
that.
remember that.
Okay, and so I'm in the inner city, right? Well, inner city kids really don't know how to cooperate.
Correct.
Before you could do cooperative learning, you had to teach listening and being quiet. And
Correct.
you had to teach the cooperation skills to be able to do it.
That's absolutely right, because I teach inner city as well, urban area as well, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and you're absolutely correct. Again, we're constantly putting the cart before the horse. The expectation is when a lot of these curriculums and programs are written is that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, and everybody knows what they're supposed to know, and the program is going to work exactly as it's been written. And exactly what you just said in many cases is the issue. Like, okay, you want cooperative learning, but they don't know how to cooperate.
Right. Yep.
Oh, so I mean, in one respect, it kind of makes me feel somewhat good because I know it's not just where I am. It's kind of like, but at the same time, it's like, and last week I had an educator as my guest as well. He was an assistant superintendent in the Texas area, and we had a conversation kind of sort of similar to this as well because the same thing is going on in Texas, and and then again, people wonder why kids are not knowing things that they think they know, or they're not performing well on these assessments. There's reasons behind it, but a lot of times people don't want to hear it. And sometimes it's conversations like we're having right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because the good teachers leave.
Correct.
And,
that is correct.
I mean, I will consider myself an excellent teacher. I still could keep up with some of my students today on Facebook and through the internet, and I have for tons of years. And I would go early and stay late and do all the 9 yards, that a good teacher does. And I'd see these other teachers that they wouldn't like you because the students loved your class.
Correct.
They didn't like you.
And see, the interesting, and again, this is a very good, it's almost like a continuation with my conversation last week with Assistant Superintendent Davis. Mm-hmm. The reasons kids like their teachers or don't like is based on relationships. If you've built relationships with your students, they'll, for the most part, make efforts. If they don't like you, it's kind of like there's a saying out there now that says kids don't learn from people they don't like.
Yeah.
And that's, I found to be true in my experience as well. And back to that point you were just making about the good teachers leave. At this point, Mary Ellen, most of our teachers are leaving between 1 and 5 years. They go into the profession, and somewhere between 1 and 5 years, they say, you know what, this is not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even about 17 years ago or 20 years ago, whenever I moved to Chattanooga with my husband, I thought, well, maybe I'll go back in the school system for a little bit. Well, I went to the Hamilton County Board of Education here, put in an application, and they told me I have my transcripts. Go back to the University of Georgia and have the professors sign. Have the professors sign? They're probably dead. And I'm like,
yes. Again, some
we
of
don't
these.
want to pay you at 15 years experience. I said, well, pay me at 1 year experience. For me, it wasn't about the money. It was
right.
like I wanted to get in there with the kids again.
Right.
And they're like,
Absolutely.
well, we can't do that. And I'm like, I just said, forget it.
So now, when you were a child, is a teacher, is that what you were, like that age-old question, what are you going to be when you grow up? Is that like when you were little, did you know you wanted to be a teacher?
No. My mother was a teacher and a principal, and she always told us, you will be a teacher.
Okay.
Well, I'm very fashion-oriented, and I was modeling in Georgia and working at Rich's downtown and doing a lot of stuff. And Dick Rich, who was the original owner of Rich's, told me, he said, if you'll come to work for me, I'll make you a buyer or whatever. I didn't even want to go to college.
Okay.
I wanted to be a fashion merchandiser or buyer or all that kind of stuff. And my mother said, no, you will go to college. And you really didn't say no to my mom. And it's just not something that was done in our household.
Correct.
And then when I went to Georgia, she said, you will major in education or you pay for it yourself. Well, I'm blonde, but I'm not that blonde. Okay, I'll major in education. And education was always really easy for me because I think because my mom was a good teacher.
Right.
She wasn't that great of a mom. She's passed on now, and no disrespect to her.
Right.
I have to look at her background. She was a very excellent teacher, excellent, and an excellent principal. And so I learned a lot through her, to where the education classes were so easy for me. I just breezed through them.
I could see that. And interestingly enough, my experience was just the opposite, because whenever I graduated high school, my two major interests was English and music. So I was going to major. I wanted to be either, I wanted to major in English. And my father was just the opposite of what your mom was saying. He was like, no, you'll never be able to make any music money. Yeah. So he was more or less like, you have to be somebody like a Michael Jackson in order to make money in music, or either, in order to, for English, the only thing you can do with that is teach, and you're not going to make any money there. So what I did was I decided to major in business administration. And that's what I did undergrad, and I wound up being hired by AT&T, and then I went to the corporate track. But in my heart was always the education piece. So after 15 years, I said, enough of this. And I took a buyout package, and I actually went back and did everything I needed to do to teach, and was in the classroom X number of years, and then started getting promoted, because that's what my passion was. So I was really rocking and rolling once I got into education, even more so than whenever I was in corporate. So it's funny, though, how our parents really can kind of influence our choices. Yeah. Where yours was saying, no, you will major in education. Mine was like, no, you don't want to go there because you won't make any money. Yeah. So, all right, so you were teaching, and now I'm going back to the bio in terms of putting in a 2-mile-long nature trail in Danbury. How did all that come about, or was that a part of a classroom project?
No, I have almost a master's in environmental ecology, environmental design. I studied up at the University of North Carolina in Asheville. And so I was living in Danbury, Connecticut, and my daughter was going to the King Street Elementary and Middle School, and they needed a nature trail. So I had a straight-shafted, gas-powered weed eater, and I said, well, I'll blaze it for you. And then my first husband put the bridges in and things, and then the kids kept tearing up the bridges, so we had to sink lag bolts down. And I had about 15 stations on the trail, from everything from natural litter to skunk cabbage, and eutrophication, which is the process of a swamp turning into a landmass. And I took, but we had about 1,000 kids from the school system come through the trail. And I even had a handicapped path to where the kids you could go the whole trail, or you could use escape routes and only do part of the trail. And I had to write activities to go with the trail because the teachers didn't have anything to use in their classroom. So I sat down and wrote them from my graduate stuff that I had done over at Asheville. And I guess it's still up in Danbury. I don't know. I haven't been back there since forever.
Now, is that kind of where, like, you're writing, because you were teaching, and then now you say you wrote this guide or book about environmental activities. Is that kind of like where you started getting into writing or publishing?
Oh, probably. I wasn't teaching school in Danbury. I was just taking care of my daughter, and I was a volunteer. I didn't teach that year. There was a year I taught in Danbury at a private school, which was interesting. I did not like that. But anyway, when I went over to the middle school, they needed a nature trail, so I had the time, and I thought, well, okay, Now,
Danbury used to have, I remember as a teenager, we used to do a bus trip to the Danbury Fair.
Yep, they had the last Danbury Fair while I lived there. And then they built the Danbury Mall, which is on the fairgrounds.
Ah, okay. So they put a mall in it, because I remember at some point we stopped going there because I guess they had closed. I guess they had stopped doing it. But I remember I was in like freshman in high school, 8th grade. We would go up there every year. And a sophomore, I was probably junior. Yeah, probably like my junior year in high school, back in like 1979, somewhere around in there. We would go, and not long after that, I guess it closed down. But I remember Danbury. As soon as I saw that in your bio, my mind went back to the Danbury Fair.
Yeah, we went to the last one, and then they closed it. In fact, I'm a bell collector, so I have a bell that says last Danbury Fair.
Oh, wow. So I'm working my way through the bio, because that's why I asked the question about writing. So now, when you decided, or what made you decide to write Healing Words, Life Lessons to Inspire? Because that was written in 2011, And you already had noted in the bio about writing the book on environmental activities. What was going on now that caused you to write a book?
Well, the best answer for that is God. And actually, that book was published in 2011. I actually wrote it back in 1999.
Okay.
And I was in Pinehurst, North Carolina at the time. And God kept telling me these vignettes, everything from awareness through to faith and forgiveness. And I was like, cut it out. Just go tell somebody else. You have this conversation with God, like,
right.
Please leave me alone. I mean, look at me. I got glow-in-the-dark blonde hair, long fingernails. People are going to look at me and say, you did write this. And he just would not leave me alone until I wrote him. So my husband and I were on a trip. We went into Raleigh, or in Atlanta. So we had to drive from Pinehurst. And all the way in the car, I'm writing, totally writing. And I get to Atlanta, and he goes to work, and I'm in the hotel room. I keep writing these things. And he comes back, and he goes, okay, I'm done. We can go shopping. And I'm like, I can't go. I got to keep writing. And he's like, you can't go shopping? Are you kidding? He just thought I was having a breakdown. All the way back in the car, kept writing, and I wrote longhand. I had 5 legal pads. I took them, and I put them down by my computer, and I said, there, they're written. Leave me alone. Well, every time I would clean the house, I'd go into the room where the computer is, and I'd see those legal pads. So one day I sat down, and I transposed them, and I had a I didn't have a good program back then. I had a pamphlet program, which is probably why they came out as vignettes. And it came out to be the book that it is, and then it had to find a publisher, and the publisher came at first in Pinehurst, and we lost a lot of money to them, and a week before we were supposed to launch, they say, oh, we're bankrupt. So then I took it to Chattanooga, and I just put it on the shelf. I said, God, if you want to get it published, send me a publisher. You won't believe this. One day, a FedEx envelope comes to the front door, and I told Pete, I said, well, you got a FedEx envelope. And I looked at it, and I said, no, it's not for you, it's for me. It was a publishing contract. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, see.
And I ended up going with Tate Publishing.
Right.
And it's been out there now since 2011.
And see, I'm listening to you, and as you're saying that, and for those in the audience, I am not proselytizing. I'm not trying to force you to believe one way, but I do know based on personal experience as well, there is something beyond us. And God does talk to us, just like you were having that conversation with God and you were saying, please leave me alone. No, there are times God does not leave us alone when he has something for us to do called our purpose in life. And he will keep on. And just like you now said, all right, God, if you want it published, send me a publisher. Sure enough, the next day you get a package. So there is a force out there bigger than us. No doubt in my mind, no question in my mind, God is out there.
Yeah.
And you were doing this, I mean, during that time, self-publishing, I don't believe at that time, back in the 90s or what have you, or was this in 2011 whenever the package came?
Package finally came probably about 2009.
Okay, so then self-publishing was around, and it's probably not as prevalent as it is now, but it was probably growing at that time. Because at one point, Mary Ellen, at one point in our lives, the option to self-publish was not there.
Yeah.
And now that option is there. And as you said, we had to go around and find publishing companies. And a lot of folks, the same experience that you had in terms of various publishing companies, had the same experience. The company went bankrupt or what have you. Or if you go the traditional route and you send your manuscript out to all the big houses, you just get a whole bunch of rejection letters.
Yeah.
So you got now Healing Words, Life Lessons to Inspire, and they're vignettes. Is it one for, because another one you did was like for 366 truths. Is this one, is the first one Healing Words kind of sort of like that, one something for every day, or is it?
It's 74 vignettes or
okay.
Poems, everything from awareness through to faith and forgiveness. And it's actually my publisher wanted to put them in a different order, and after I was through, I asked God to put them in order. And I said, no, you have to keep them in this order.
Right.
This is the way it's supposed to be. And this book, the publishing house went bankrupt. If people want a copy of this book, they have to message me, because I do have copies here at home, and it is supposed to be republished at the beginning of next year.
So it's healing words, life lessons to inspire. So as God spoke to you, what is it that you're looking for as a reader gets that book? What is your hope as the writer that happens? I guess it's kind of in the title, to inspire.
Well, I ask people to, they can read it all the way through. It's a short little book. It's not that long. Okay. You can read it all the way through, or you can wake up in the morning and flip to a page, and you can read that vignette and keep it with you all day as you go through your day. Come back and reread it at night to see what you learned about you. Because that's what your life is all about. Your life is all about learning what you need to learn. It's not, see, what I'm trying to teach people, Mark, is to quit pointing the finger at other people.
Correct.
There's one finger out, three fingers back, okay? The good you see in others is the good you have inside yourself.
Correct.
And conversely, the things about other people that really hook you or really irritate you are God's way, or the universe's way, however you want to see it, of showing you what you need to work on in yourself.
Right.
And if you see something bad in somebody and it doesn't irritate you, then it's not one of your issues, okay? And if you see something and the next day you're like, I can't believe they did that, and the next day and the next week you're still just harping on it inside, then what is it about that situation, excuse me, excuse me, Mark, I'm sorry, that you need to learn?
Wow. I like that whole notion of what you just said of read it in the morning and then come back to it at night to see what transpired through the day that's connected to what you read in the morning. And what does that say about yourself? Because I see here when you're talking about your topics that you speak on, awareness of the self is one of them. And that's big now. I know there's like trends and buzzwords, but this whole notion of mindfulness is like the buzz phenomenon now, or the buzzwords or whatever. But it is so critical, because you are absolutely right when you say that folks are very quick to blame everything on someone else. Now, working with kids, that's what I get the first word out of, and I always tell the kids I work with, I don't want to hear he, I don't want to hear she, I don't want to hear they. I ask you, what did you do? So I don't want you to start off talking about, well, he, well, she, well, they. No. I want you to tell me what you did. And again, because we're really trying to help our boys. I mean, we're doing a whole thing on social emotional learning. And one of the tenets in that is self-awareness. So we really are pushing our students to really take ownership of their actions. Now, they may not they may not want to have to fess up to whatever it is they did, but at the same time, our response to them is not always going to be punitive. And we're trying to help them understand that as well. Look, tell me what it is, and then, we'll work it through. But the self-awareness piece is big. It really is.
Yeah. Well, see, I was forced into learning self-awareness through the diagnosis, or you can call it diseases, that I've gone through in my life. In 1986, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Wow.
I was a tournament racquetball player at the time, and I would get hot, and I'd start seeing two balls, and I'd start losing my balance, and I had to call the match. So I went to an eye doctor, and then my eye doctor sent me to my internist. My internist sent me to my neurologist that I already had, since I've had epilepsy since I was 6. And,
okay.
Haven't had a seizure in 30 years, so whatever. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
I know, right? God bless. I know that's right.
And I was told at the time, okay, you have demyelinating disease. And I looked at her and I said, well, what is that? Because I was a speaker for the National Epilepsy Foundation, so she knew me quite well. And she goes, well, you're going to go home and look it up. And I go, yeah. And she goes, well, okay, you have MS, you have multiple sclerosis. Well, see, what I teach people, I was very fortunate that I did not have a preconceived picture of what MS was in my mind.
Correct.
I mean, I'd heard it. And to the extent you have a picture of what your diagnosis is, okay, whatever negative, whatever positive, you will become that picture if you hold on to it. because what you focus on expands and what you think about happens.
That's right.
If I were to go around going, oh, poor little me, I have MS, oh, my gosh, okay, I have it to deal with. And some days are definitely better than others, okay? I've been very fortunate. I don't take any of the MS medications because they weren't around in 86 when I was diagnosed. And I called the National MS Foundation the day after I got diagnosed, and I said, okay, send me your literature. Well, Mark, in 1986, they sent me this packet of, god-awful negative literature. And my middle schoolers will tell you that I don't get mad often, but when I get upset, you got to stay out of my way.
Right.
So I called the National Foundation, and I said, well, how dare you send out this packet of literature? You're telling me I'm... And they said, well, we hate to tell you. And I said, I hate to tell you. And I just hung up the phone. And I trashed that literature. And what I teach people, what I was doing, is I was buying out of that negative picture.
Correct.
And I know that I can handle my diagnosis my way. And I find doctors who will support that. There are neurologists and different doctors who will not support it, that you have to be on the shots, you have to be this. And if somebody's listening and they're on the shots and they're working for you, please keep taking them. That's great. I am so glad. I'm just saying in my particular case, that is not the way I want to go.
No, and something you said that, again, is so critical, and that is along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, and maybe you did say it this way, is you bring about what you think about.
Yeah.
And there's no question. This is again back to the mind and perspective, and I'm not. And I don't think Mary Ellen is saying it either, that we're asking somebody to be unrealistic or to just pretend as if it doesn't. But at the same time, if you go into a situation already, like she said, with a preconceived notion of it being negative, guess which way it's going to turn out? Negative. On the flip side, you have a better chance if you go into a situation with a preconceived notion of it working out positive. Now, that's not to say, because we're not trying to give you any pie in the sky. We're not trying to give you any hooey or mumbo jumbo or hocus pocus. But I know, Mary Ellen, from my life experiences, going into it with a positive frame of mind works out generally way more than going into it with a negative frame of mind. I think we always quote Henry Ford with saying, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Either way, you're right, yeah.
Correct. So that, I mean, well, I applaud you for pushing back on the association, because, again, maybe they need to think about that. Not that they're misleading anybody, but again, the way they frame their words. I mean, that's why for me personally, I have an issue with doctors telling someone or projecting how long they have to live.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a firm believer that once the doctor has set that time frame in your mind,
that's it.
Right, it helps make it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and people need to realize, too, how many prescriptions. Yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't take prescriptions, if you're on a prescription and it's helping you, do so. And look it up. Google it. Look at the symptoms. And if you have MS, and I have many clients that I deal with that have MS, and they say, every time I take that shot, it makes me feel worse. Well, then go back to your doctor. That is your body. That is God telling you, hey, you don't need this.
No, absolutely. I mean, oh my goodness, this time we're right on point. You're right on point, because, all right, for those in the listening audience, you've heard me say this over and over again. There are laws, just like there's gravity, just like there's other laws. There's a law of attraction, and that's what Mary Ellen and I are talking about right now. And the fact that there is a law of attraction does not negate the belief in God.
True. Very true.
It does not negate that. What we're saying, and Mary Ellen, this is the example I always use with my students. I'll take a metal file cabinet and a magnet, and I'll share with them, okay, let's pretend you're the file cabinet. The file cabinet is you. Now, let's say you're thinking over and over and over again a certain thought. Now I take the magnet out, and I get closer and closer to the file cabinet until the magnet literally leaps out of my hand and jumps onto the file cabinet. And so I help them, again, back to being a visual learner, to understand that what you're thinking about is pulling in the exact thing that you're thinking about. So we're thinking about things that we don't want to happen. Guess what signal is going out?
Exactly what you don't want to happen.
Exactly. So that's like, again, we use all kinds of examples. You tell somebody not to think of a pink elephant. Guess what they're all of a sudden thinking about?
Yeah, pink elephant.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you're right on point with guiding folks the way that you are. And this does not negate the fact that you have the multiple sclerosis or the epilepsy or whatever disease you may have. It doesn't negate that, but it really does make a difference in terms of how you approach it and how you think about it.
You have to be very careful. I talk to doctors about giving their diagnosis, and I talk to parents. Like a lot of people will say they're an epileptic. No, I'm not an epileptic.
Correct.
That denotes that I'm this walking, talking epileptic. No. Part of me has epilepsy to deal with. I take one pill 3 times a day. Big deal, Okay, that for me, and I can go into a whole scenario as to what mine is, but we'll waste too much time. And even with the MS, if I wake up and it's a bad day, I fight through it. I go work out anyway. I religiously work out almost every single day.
And
very strict diet.
Right.
People do not realize how their diet affects their health.
Correct.
Or how lack of movement affects their life.
You're again. There's no question. You're going down the right road in what you're saying, because the reason I can say that is because I experienced it for myself. Another key point you just made, and I want to frame it this way: whatever you put after the words "I am," you are, you become. So you just made that whole point. People will say, "I am epileptic." Yes. Now you've just.
Yeah.
Because you put that after the word I am. See, I could not agree with you more, because a few years ago, I was diagnosed pre-diabetic. And I do not tell anybody I'm diabetic. I don't want to get into all of that, because like you, I'm doing the dieting and the exercise thing, and I've been able to stay off of the medications, because the doctor told me, well, if you diet and exercise, we can keep you off medication. So I do not claim being a diabetic, because that's really what we're doing. Once we put something after I am.
Exactly.
So that is a listening audience. You've heard that before here on the show, but again, take it in again. It's an extremely important point. Words are powerful, and how you put them together will determine what you're getting. Now, you just heard Mary Ellen say, she doesn't say, I am an epileptic. I don't blame you. I really don't. People think it is, and I'm laughing because a lot of people think that's just a lot of hooey. It's not. Our words have power. You heard her say earlier, God, you want me this book out? Send me a publisher. She got a package the next day. I've had experiences like that as well. So our words are powerful.
Mm-hmm. And then going on to the second book, can we talk about that?
Sure. That's the T.R.U.T.H?
Yeah, Truth.
Yeah, Truth, yes.
Taking Responsibility Unleashes True Healing. Well, that book came about because my publisher told me in order to get healing words out, I had to get on social media. Well, I didn't want to get on social media, so I thought, okay, what can I do on social media to be positive or to be real, okay?
Right.
Real stands for really enthusiastic about life, okay? That would be something similar to healing words, yet different. So I came up with a truth of the day. So since 2011, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, I've been posting a truth of the day. And I just don't post a sentence. I will post, like I'm opening the book here. Okay, on page 54, it says, when you honor others by treating them correctly, you honor yourself. Okay, and then it goes into a paragraph kind of explaining that. And then I always end with, enjoy the day. So this truth, taking responsibility, unleashes true healing. My followers said, take your truths of the day and put them into a book. Well, I didn't want to use the ones I've been writing about. So I sat down. It took me 7 months to write this book and come up with new truths that, again, God put into my little blonde brain.
Correct.
And it finally came out into be this book. And has a peacock on the cover, a brilliant peacock. And I'm going to tell you the story of the peacock. You know why peacocks have their beautiful colors in their tail?
Tell us.
They eat thorns. They eat thorns.
They eat thorns?
They eat thorns. And the harder the thorn is to digest in the digestive tract, the more colorful and more beautiful the color in the tail.
Wow.
And I relate this to people going through our life experiences. When we go through those hard life experiences that look like it's awful, it looks like it's going to be the end of everything, it's like the worst thing that ever happened to you, when you learn from it, and that is a key, when you learn from that experience, you become the peaceful, glorious, successful person God wants you to be. When you do not learn from it, then that experience is recreated in your life in a different way to see if you can learn the next time.
That's correct. Wow, I didn't. See, I constantly tell people you should learn something new every day. And it doesn't have to be anything monumental or anything huge, because people hear that and they think they have to learn astrophysics. No, you learn something new every day, and it could be small. Just now, you're sharing of the story with the peacock eating thorns. That's my something new already for the day. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. And I love the way you were saying the tougher the thorn, the more beautiful the color based on the experience. And now you did the analogy or the comparison to our life.
Yeah. But it is true. I mean, everything in your life is for you to learn from, good, bad, and different. If there's something in your world that you don't like, you have the control. You have the power. Why do you have it in your life? Why are you putting up with a friend that puts you down all the time? Why are you putting up with a relationship that you really, truly can't stand? Why are you not honoring self?
I had the mic button off, and I'm laughing because every morning at my school we do a mindfulness moment, and it's kind of like what we're talking about here. And the one for yesterday said, or the one for Thursday said, let's see how it went. It said, a clown is going to be a clown. The question becomes, if you don't like clowns, why do you keep going to the circus? Mm-hmm. So just now when you said, why are you putting up with the friend that you claim that, gets on your nerves or whatever? Like, absolutely, that's what came to mind to me. It's like, okay, a clown's going to be a clown. So why do you keep going to the circus then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you ought to buy a copy of my book.
I intend to. No, I really intend, because first off, I love those types. I kick off the show every morning at the 6 o'clock hour reading from 2 books and they're daily devotionals. And so since the show is only on once a week, it's only on Saturdays, the chance of somebody hearing the same one twice, since it's 365 of them in each book, is it's almost nil. So books like yours I love, because that's how I kick the show off. It's always it sets a positive vibe for the rest of the show. But taking responsibility unleashes true healing. And this is back to what we were talking about everybody always willing to point the finger. It's always everybody else. It's never you. It's never them, never you. Always somebody else. And so you have one, I can see it's 366, so there's one at least for each day.
Yeah, well, I did that. My father-in-law was born on leap year, so the extra one is in honor of him.
All right. So it's intentional. That was done consciously. Yes. That was done intentionally. So you just talked about, and at the end of the interview, I'll give you the opportunity to repeat it, but your Instagram and where you post these, who do we follow, or what do we follow by?
Well, you can go to www.askmaryellen.com.
Okay.
And there are links there to all different pages. Facebook, Mary Ellen Ciganovich. Instagram, Mary Ciganovich. I guess I couldn't fit my whole name in. Twitter, @AskMaryEllen. And LinkedIn, Mary Ellen Ciganovich. Well, that's how we connected, Mark, is on LinkedIn.
Correct. So, yeah, LinkedIn, we're already on. But before the end of the day, I'll be connected to all the other sites as well. And you say each day on all of them, another truth comes up?
Yeah, Monday through Friday, I post a truth of the day. Like, I have them written through December. And what I do is I write them on Word, and I be quiet, and I try to meditate and try to see what God wants me to write.
Correct.
And then I put them a publishing program to make them look a little bit more attractive, and then I post them. I'll get up in the morning around 5 o'clock, and I'll start posting them everywhere. And then on Saturday and Sunday, like today's, is a picture, and it says something about to enjoy life even with the detours. I forget.
Correct. And see, first off, as human beings, we were never promised that from the womb to the tomb was going to be an easy ride. Yet there are many who get frustrated whenever issues and challenges come up. Mm-hmm. And again, back to what we were talking about, it really is not so much the issue or the challenge, it's how you react, respond, and get through it.
Oh, exactly. That's perfect. It's not what's in front of you, it's how you walk through it. And people try to sidestep their fears,
right.
Try to walk around them. You cannot, even in the Bible, it says you must walk through your fears.
Correct. I think a lot of frustration because I know I dealt with something with my sister over this past year. She was stricken with diabetic related illnesses, and then she got hit with having to move, and that almost took her out. It was like as a matter of fact, I'm gonna get her a copy of your book. Every day I was constantly having to encourage her because. I got a real good taste of what depression was about dealing, and I was constantly trying to help her understand, okay, it is what it is. We'll deal with it. We'll go through it. You'll do what you need to do, so forth and so on. But that's been the constant. And now she's doing okay. She moved. The move was fine. Her physical condition is easing up a little bit. But the message and the reason I'm saying all that is exactly what we're talking about is what I have to constantly tell her every day. You don't have a choice. You're not going to get around this. Because in her mind, I believe, first off, I don't think she wanted to age. I don't think I think in her mind, she thought she was going to be like she always was at 16.
None of us want to, trust me. I got that one.
But it's like me and my sister, we're in our 50s now, and things that come along with being in your 50s and 60s or something, they're cropping up now. So she's getting frustrated because I just can't do it. But you're going to have to accept that. You can't do what you used to do because you're in a different place. And the more you sit there moaning about what you can't do, what you used to do, the more you're frustrating yourself.
You get more of what you can't do.
Exactly.
And you have to stay now. Like sometimes, if it is a bad MS day, and sometimes that hits in the summer because the heat tends to bother it. But I will get up in the morning and I will actually say, okay, now I'm saying a little prayer. Now I'm getting my coffee. Now I'm getting ready to go work out, even when I feel bad. And at the end of that workout, you feel so much better because it's your brain telling your body that even though it's a bad MS day, I can do it. Look what I did. And that whole notion about the movement. My physician, whenever I go do my annual, because I have to let her know what type of exercise. She can tell when I haven't been moving. She said, you haven't been working out lately, have you? Like, okay, you're right, Doc. I took a couple weeks off, this, that, and the other. But, she constantly, as long as you move and keep your diet, we won't have to do medicine. So that's always kind of like my driver there in terms of, matter of fact, I need to get back because my main, you said you played racquetball, correct? Yeah.
Because I love racquetball. That was one of my main sports. But over the years, I've kept up with cycling. So I ride my bicycle all the time, or either I'll go to the gym and ride the stationary bike or what have you. But I really keep up with that, and she can tell whenever I don't.
Oh, yeah. Yep. It is so important. Your diet especially. I don't drink any carbonated drinks. I haven't for years, for decades actually, because it's the carbonation. It's not really the sugar. Everybody thinks it's the sugar in the drink.
Right.
It's the carbonation.
Wow.
Because if you think to yourself, okay, if you're going to eat naturally, what in nature is carbonated?
Well, that's a good point.
There's nothing. So they sell these soda stream things and, making carbonated water. A girlfriend of mine bought one for her husband. I said, what are you trying to do, kill him?
That's my second thing new for the day. Not the sugar, it's the carbonation. Where you say, what are you trying to do? Oh, my goodness. If you've just joined us, listening audience, and I hope you've been with us since the beginning. Certainly, I hope you've been with me since 6, but if not 6, certainly 7 when my guest joined me. She is Mary Ellen Ciganovich. And we've been talking health issues, mindfulness issues, perspective issues, God issues. We've been talking about it for the last 52 minutes or so. And I hope you've been with us as Mary Ellen has authored. Is it 2 books or more than 2?
Well, just 2 for right now. The environmental book's not out anymore.
Okay, so it's 2, and maybe more to come. So it's at least 2 that she has out there, and there may be more to come, because it's kind of like not yet. Like your 3rd and 4th and 5th is in the yet. But there's 2 that's out there at the moment that we're talking about: Healing Words, Life Lessons to Inspire, and Truth. It's an acronym. Taking responsibility unleashes true healing. And see, again, I heard you talking earlier about forgiveness and everything. That's a hot topic, too, in terms of, I don't think many folks understand that, yes, forgiveness is about the other person, but to be honest with you, forgiveness is more for you.
Forgiveness is about the self.
Right.
And it's, people always think, well, I should forgive him or whatever. No, forgive yourself for knowing as you were walking down the aisle that you shouldn't have married him, and you married him anyway because Mom and Dad were sitting there and it was all paid for.
Correct.
Forgive yourself for going with a friend somewhere that you knew you shouldn't have gone. Forgive yourself for listening to incorrect information. You always know when your knowings, and I always tell people to come from their knowings. See, your belief comes from your ego mind.
Correct.
And it always doubt. But your knowings come from your soul, comes from your spirit. It comes from your higher connection with God and the universe, whatever you want to call it.
Correct. I mean, me and you speak the same speak. So that's no doubt in my mind. That's how we connected on LinkedIn. That's why soon as you inboxed me, I gave you your date.
Yep.
And so that's whenever I kind of know, like, didn't know you from Adam. You didn't know me from Adam. We know each other online, but it was just something about whenever I saw your message, I said, I'm having her on. I have some openings. Let's do this now. And now, as we're talking, I know why.
Why?
We're speaking the same speak. I mean, our beliefs are lining up the same in terms of like what we're talking about, what you think about, bring about. So, I mean, I really believe that, because I've seen too many times either words or thoughts manifest, both negative and positively. And, as the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything that I teach, people think it's New Age, it's this, it's spirituality. Right. No, it's in the Bible.
Correct.
Didn't you read it? Did you miss it?
That's correct.
Did you miss the sentence that said you have to walk through your fears? And you
right.
Sidestep them and have this, you have to learn, and if you don't learn, you're going to be hit with the same situation again. It's just like, when I was growing up, I had a lot of issues with my mom because she was always telling me, oh, poor little Mary Ellen, you have epilepsy and you have to hide it, don't tell anybody. Well, I was like, I did things anyway.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, I just did them.
Now, see, I see one of the things that you talk about, one of your topics, is parenting. And you just brought up something very interesting, too. And we as parents, because I know we think we're doing it because we love our kids, this and that, but we can actually project things onto our children.
Yep.
Exactly what you just described. Like, you weren't necessarily willing to accept that title, for lack of a better term, but your mom was constantly reminding you of it. Yeah,
she was like... don't tell anybody when you go to college. Don't tell people. We'll send you your medication. She used to tell me, if you go to get married, don't tell your husband. We'll send you your medication for the rest of your life. Well, you're going to die before I do. I mean,
that's the natural order of things. Yes.
So when I was in college, the first person I ever told was my sorority roommate, and she just looked at me and she goes, "Well, so what?"
Exactly.
I was like, didn't you hear what I just said? Because to me, it was this black part on my soul that I had to hide from my own family to be able to be accepted. So I had to work through, I mean, like people look at me today and they say, you know, if you were to look at me, you would think I don't have a health care in the world.
Right.
You should see my doctor folder.
But I mean, that even comes through on your profile shot on LinkedIn. Had I not read the bio, I would not have given that any illness, anything a thought, just from looking at your photo.
Yeah. And, you know, you can't, it's a proven, I hope to inspire people that they can overcome anything if you want to.
Correct.
Now, that's the key phrase there. Do you want to?
Correct.
You know, and what is holding you back? The only thing that holds you back is yourself.
Correct.
I mean, I try to do something every day, connect with somebody in some way to try to get truth, taking responsibility, Unleashes True Healing out to the public, because I know it's good, and I know this is what our society needs right now.
Absolutely, because that whole concept or notion that you just talked about of constantly blaming someone else, that is on display daily from our leadership.
Well, our societal teachings are so wrong. I mean, you're taught, you know, if you're a good parent, you should worry about your kids. Well, if you were a good parent and raised them correctly, why should you worry about them?
Correct.
They're off living their own life.
It's absolutely.
You know, worry is such, why should you worry about anything? If you ever think about worry, did it change anything? Did it make it better?
Correct.
No, but maybe it gave you a headache.
Right.
If you're such a good person, you had to worry.
Right. I mean, worry, and some of it comes not even like if we can control it, but for the most part, worry just does nothing but takes a lot of energy. Worry sucks a lot of energy, and you're right, doesn't change a thing.
Yeah.
You've
and anxiety is the same way. People say, well, I have anxiety attacks.
Well, that anxiety, worry, same thing. It's just another way of saying another word for it. You're absolutely right.
Are allowing anxiety to march over that mountain like a person with a weapon.
Right.
And launch it at you. And why are you doing that? You know, a lot of people tell me, you know, some of my friends where I work out, how do you do those interviews? And how do you, like on Monday I go Facebook Live and I do those Facebook Live video. And you're so natural. Well, that's just me. You know, why should I have a good message for people.
Correct.
And I want people to understand it and hear it. And I want parents to take responsibility and see that their kids, if they're acting out, they're a reflection for their parents.
Correct.
I mean, I taught school like you know, many years. The apple never fell far from the tree.
Correct. Sometimes I would say the apple didn't even fall. I said it's still on the.
and the kids that have parents at home, and sometimes parents say, "Well, I can't be at home. I'm working." Yes, and when you are home, do you spend quality time? It doesn't have to be a lot of time.
Correct.
Quality time, telling them that you care about them, that you love them, that you're there for them.
Correct. I could not agree with you more. And Mary Ellen, we have gotten down to the last portion of our interview, and when I get to this point, I give the guests the opportunity to shout out and give all your websites, speaking appearances, how to get in touch with you in terms of your services. The only thing at this point that you can't say is a dollar amount. But I will ask this before we get there. Your Truth book, is that, and you can talk about this whenever we talk about availability, but is that available in electronic format, in e-format on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, paperback, and Kindle.
And Kindle. Great.
I sent you the link.
Oh, great, because for the Kindle, all right, for the Kindle version, without a doubt, before today is out, I will have downloaded it, because most of my books, and I didn't think I was going to like Kindle when they first was introduced, because I love books. Mm-hmm. But the convenience of it, of being, like when I carry my iPad with me, I have 600 books in there. So from that standpoint, and that's why I always ask my guests, is it available in Kindle format? Because before the day is out, I will have downloaded it. Because I truly believe in supporting like this type of work in terms of our authors and guests and this, that, and the other. And, you know, it kind of like what goes around comes around. People support my work. I support their work. So before the day is out, I will have downloaded Truth. Taking Responsibility Unleashes True Healing. And also I will have connected with all your social media sites. So again, at this point, you have the microphone. I'm turning my mic off and you get a chance to promote anything with the exception of the dollar amount.
Okay. Well, Truth, Taking Responsibility Unleashes True Healing is available on Amazon in paperback and on Kindle. I happen to like the paperback. Makes a great Christmas gift. And it is under Mary Ellen Ciganovich, which you probably can't spell. But you can go to www.askmaryellen.com and connect over to any of my links on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. On Facebook Live, I do a Miracles on Monday with Mary Ellen. And this Monday, on Miracles on Monday, we're going to be talking about living your life on purpose with passion. I go live at 8 o'clock on Facebook Live, so join me on if you're on Facebook. Just click follower, and you can follow me. And, Mark, if you want a copy of Healing Words, Life Lessons to Inspire, please just go to my website. My cell phone's there. If you want a copy, I'll be glad to send you one for a fee.
No, that's fine. As I said, we need to support each other, so that's fine.
It makes a great gift also. So if you need any Christmas gifts or you have any birthdays in January, or if you have somebody that has everything and you don't know what to buy for them, these are really good books. I'm not just saying that just because they're mine. Truth has 11 5-star reviews on Amazon.
All right. Well, you know what? I thank you so much for joining me this morning. I'm so glad you inboxed me on LinkedIn. I mean, we were talking about social media earlier. When social media first came out, I was like, that's just for kids. But then the light bulb went off. I said, I can market the show on there. And that's whenever I got connected on all the various sites. And LinkedIn has been great in terms of connecting me with people. And you are one of them. And again, I'm so glad we had this conversation. Listening audience, it is my hope that you've been inspired and motivated, that you've learned something new for the day as well. And again, as Mary Ellen said, if you want to get in contact with her, you can go to her website, and it's askmaryellen.com, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, that's very simple to remember. And the Mary and the Ellen is spelled just like you know it or just like it sounds. All right, so it's askmaryellen.com. And if you go there, that's the hub to everything else. Yeah. And I truly recommend daily devotionals such as what Mary Ellen has written and I really love that idea you said earlier about read it in the morning and then come back to it at night. I'm going to start doing that. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that for sure. I'm going to start doing that because that's different. It's one thing to read it in the morning and like, okay, I did my morning devotion and meditation and move on. It's another thing to come back at night and then reflect upon what you read in the morning and put what happened in your day in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a blessing speaking with you, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. Have a wonderfully blessed day, weekend, rest of your week and year, and I will be in touch with you.
Good. I look forward to it. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.